What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Zekko Football channel. You are watching The Recap, the show where we go through the major talking points from the most recent round of Premier League fixtures. We have a lot to talk about today, so we're going to get right into it. However, if you're new to the channel, please make sure that you subscribe, you like the video, and you turn on those notifications. Right, let's recap. Let's start off with Brighton's masterclass against Manchester United, and I thought Brighton were well worth their 3-1 victory here. They played Manchester United off the park, and it looked like United didn't know what to do with it. The attacking momentum bar is very favourable for United, but actually what really happened was the fact that Brighton just dominated the game, and they were never really tested. These are the two formations, and one thing that we can immediately see is Manchester United decided to go into the game with no wingers, no one on the left-hand side and no one on the right-hand side. And this allowed Tarek Lamptey to really start to bomb forwards, and actually the width that was held from the two Brighton fullbacks, this is Lamptey and this is Veltman, allowed Brighton to just extend their patterns of play that little bit further. It meant that the press that Manchester United tried to engage on in multiple occasions fell through on numerous times because of the width of Brighton's possession and their positioning. It meant that the midfielders were able to drift through the lines and pick up different pockets that the Manchester United players just could not go into, and time after time after time again the press was beaten. I was extremely impressed, by the way, with Danny Welbeck, obviously a former Manchester United player, not only with the way he held up the ball but also with the way he dropped back a little bit deeper to make sure that Brighton were difficult to play against. And that's another thing to really notice. A lot of the teams are really pressing forwards, holding high lines to make sure that they can pen teams into the attacking areas. However, when we think about Brighton and them being a completely possession-based side, they're still holding quite a low block, and that's because teams aren't necessarily respecting the way that they play the football and the way that they can progress the ball through midfield. The depth of their mid to low block really does dictate the amount that teams really want to attack Brighton, but they don't understand how good they are at passing through the lines. Their progression through the lines of midfield and through into the attacking areas is some of the best in the league, if not the best in the league. And I know that's quite a big statement, but I really do believe that. I thought the likes of Matoma were quite quiet. However, Adingra did quite a good job at getting back and also going forwards. It was a real team effort, and I thought Pascal Gross had another sensational performance. The back two, in terms of Dunk and Van Heck, weren't really troubled all too much, and I just want to talk about this Manchester United midfield because yes, it was fine to pick no wingers. I thought that Rasmus Højlund and Marcus Rashford did quite a good job of linking up with the limited amounts of time that they had to train with each other, but Scott McTominay was very much a passenger. And Bruno Fernandes being in this central area, it just meant that Brighton always had an out on these flanks, and it would surprise me that Erik ten Hag didn't notice this trait during the first half because Brighton were continuously getting out. On some positives, if there are any for Manchester United in this game, I thought that Reguilon played quite a good match, as did Rasmus Højlund, but it's more of a concerning asset or a concerning point in the fact that their two best players were the newest players to the team. And that's just the final thing that I want to mention on the whole for this Manchester United side, is that once they went 1-0 down, the mentality seemed to shift completely, and it looked like they became almost disjointed. Their discipline had gone. Bruno Fernandes was pressing by himself. Casemiro was deciding to go on 20 to 30 yard runs to try and make presses, and it's almost like they just gave up the tactics and the formation that was given to them by Erik ten Hag within the first, I would say, 20 minutes. The 20th minute is when Brighton scored, and from that moment on, Brighton really just dominated the match. We can have a look at some of the statistics, but I really did think that Manchester United just handed it to Brighton. They had a goal disallowed, yes, of course, but really the XG was in Brighton's favour, the possession was in Brighton's favour, they had more shots on target, they actually had more big chances, they missed more big chances, it could have been more, and really it was a testament to the way that Brighton play football. And actually it's quite a damning thing on Erik ten Hag in the sense that De Zerbi's actually been in a job for less time than Ten Hag at Brighton, and he's been able to establish a system, he's been able to establish a style of play, a progressive style of play with forward attacking momentum. And still, Manchester United are looking to play on the transition, play on the counter-attack, and try to play in moments. And it was those moments that just didn't materialise for them in this game. Brighton created so very much, and they could have won the game by so much more. It really was a gulf in class between the two, and the better team won. And now let's talk about Liverpool's visit to the Molineux. The game ended by 3-1, and that looks relatively simple, but it was anything but, really. In the first half, I thought Wolves were absolutely spectacular. They really gave it to Liverpool. The energy, the press, the momentum, the attacking drive, and it was the physicality that Liverpool just weren't able to deal with. Pedro Neto did a very good job of beating Joe Gomez on a numerous amount of occasions. Hwang Hee-chan running through into that Liverpool backline, and then you have Matheus Cunha picking up some very good positions in the box. They just weren't able to finish. I thought Rigna Bellegarde did an absolutely brilliant job of driving through the heart of this Liverpool midfield, and really that's one of the main takeaways that Liverpool need to have from this, is that this midfield three just didn't do a good enough job physically to be able to deal with the forward momentum of this Wolves side. And although they weren't able to create, or they weren't able to finish too many chances, I should say, they created a great deal. Joao Gomez and Mario Lemina did a good job also of recovering possession and making sure that they were able to get it through to the forward line. But Liverpool managed to come back into the game, and that is credit. And we need to give that credit to this Liverpool side. I thought Andy Robertson was absolutely spectacular. I thought Joe Gomez had a really tough game in the first half, but really came into his own in the second. Quansah was thrown in at the deep end, and I understand that they're without Virgil van Dijk. I understand that we're without Konate. But really, this Liverpool back line, especially this three that I'm highlighting here, were just nowhere near good enough in the first half. They weren't really too good in the second half, but they were balanced out by the amazing Liverpool attack that came forwards. Speaking of the attack, Andy Robertson needs to be given a lot of mention, but so does Mo Salah, who is slowly but surely and very quietly becoming a creative machine for this Liverpool side. He's really starting to add those assists to his game as well as the goals. Cody Gakpo benefiting from this as well as Andy Robertson, and that is how they were able to get ahead. And then obviously the deflected goal from Harvey Elliott's shot made it 3-1, but really Mo Salah needs to be given a lot of credit here, and I haven't seen anything around his creation because for some reason people just aren't talking about it. But he did a brilliant job of setting up both goals. His drive, his momentum, and his lack of selfishness, I think, is something that needs to be credited. He hasn't really looked for a shot by himself on too many times. He's looked for a teammate more often than not, and that is a testament to the way this Liverpool side play, the way they look for themselves, they look for their teammates, and they really start to bounce back. This is the second comeback that they've had this season, and it's been extremely impressive. Salah obviously setting up their first goal against Chelsea as well, slowly starting to creep into those assists. Very, very impressive stuff. If we finally have a look at some of the statistics, it was very much in Liverpool's favour towards the end of the game, but again, I was extremely impressed with the way that Wolves played. And overall, I think Wolves can take a lot of credit. Obviously, Liverpool get the win, but if we're looking for positives for both sides, Liverpool's powers of recovery were sensational, especially with a back four that does not look anywhere near first choice. That midfield three is going to need to be looked at as well, because they were bypassed far too easily, especially through Curtis Jones and Alexis McAllister as the centre defensive midfielder. I thought Szoboszlai did okay, but ran into challenges more often than not. This Wolves side can take a lot of positives from this. Neto, Hwang Hee-chan, Joao Gomez, Lemina, they all played very, very well. If there's anything I would say, they ran out of steam in the second half, but that was down to a fabulous Liverpool attack. It was a cracking game to watch, and it ended Liverpool 3, Wolverhampton Wanderers 1. Both teams can take positives. Two teams on the opposite ends of the table. Arsenal beating Everton by 1-0. I thought Everton put a lot into this game, but I can understand the discourse and I can understand the frustration with this Everton side from their fans. If we have a look at the attacking momentum bar, I mean, this really does encapsulate everything and all the frustration that Everton fans are feeling. These are the few moments Everton were able to really create any kind of momentum. Apart from that, Arsenal completely dominated the game, and while I do understand that you have to do certain things to try and make sure that you're competitive in a match, and they were, let's not really mistake that, they were competitive in this game, but at what cost? And is it worth it? Everton really failed to go forwards. I thought Beto was completely outmuscled by William Saliba, who had a pretty decent game, apart from that horrendous dive that he had. You have a midfield of Idrissa Gana Gueye, Onana and Doucouré, all very good workman-like players, and they all can win the ball back. But really, when you're talking about progressing the ball through the pitch, How many players can do that? McNeil failed to really get on the ball too many times, failed to drive at his right back. His right back. Then you have Danjuma, who really flattered to deceive on certain occasions. I thought Ashley Young had a decent game. The two centre-backs actually did quite well at dealing with Eddie Nketiah, and then Gabriel Jesus was actually an Arsenal set piece that unlocks this game. And the deep line from Everton is something that you need to expect against a team like Arsenal. But my concern comes from the fact that they were very, very narrow, and it made sure that Arsenal weren't able to go through the middle of them. But instead of that, they had no wing presence, and they weren't able to get down the sides. The way you can really attack this Arsenal side is by hitting them on the channels. Because of the fact that they bomb so many players forward, specifically Zinchenko here and Ben White, it leaves the channels open, and it means that you need to fight against either Gabriel or William Saliba. And if you have a player like Danjuma, if you have a player like Dwight McNeil with the ability, with the prowess, with the ball running capabilities, I do think you can get at this Arsenal side. However, they just weren't progressive enough, and I didn't think that they had anyone in the side to again be able to progress the ball forwards. A lot of the times it was just a long ball up from Pickford, praying that Beto could take it down, and then later on Calvert-Lewin, but they failed to. It must be said that I thought Arsenal were very, very good. I thought they maintained their patience, they stayed composed, they didn't let it get to them, and they picked up some decent pockets of space. However, there were some concerning moments. I thought Fabio Vieira took up some very odd positions. Martinelli goes off quite early, and Trossard drifts in field quite a lot of the time. But Fabio Vieira, apart from that, drifted into certain scenarios like a left winger, which isn't necessarily too bad, but when Martinelli comes back into the side, like Kai Havertz, I do think it's going to start to cause problems. Zinchenko coming into midfield, partnering Declan Rice, making sure that they have that defensive solidity at the same time as being able to progress the ball forwards. Bukayo Saka had quite a quiet game, and this is down to the flip side of this, which is the Everton defensive line, who were very, very good. Arsenal obviously dominating a lot of it, 74% possession, and this is the problem. 26% possession at home. At what point do you need to start looking at your own team and thinking that they probably could have done a little bit more? But could they? This is a question that I want to ask you guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below on Everton and Arsenal. Arsenal, less so, but Everton, do you think they could have done more, or is it a case of Arsenal just being too good? I think there's a really big question to ask about Everton because they haven't got a win yet, and they've played 5 games now. They've got 1 draw and 4 losses, and that's nowhere near good enough, and it's starting to look a little bit bleak already. I've seen people already call for Sean Dyche's head, and I think that's far too early. But they're not really looking too enticing, are they? They're defensively sound to a certain point, but you really worry about them going forwards. Arsenal I have no problems with. I thought they dealt with a lot of attacking situations very well. Everton didn't create all too much, and Arsenal stayed patient, created a moment of quality, and took their win. It was a bogeygram for them, and I really did think that they did a good job of taking the points and then leaving. But Everton, there are concerning signs around Everton, and I'm starting to get a little bit worried. Arsenal continue their winning ways. The game ended 1-0. Finally, let's have a look at the rest of the results from around the grounds and then take a look at the Premier League table. Fulham beating Luton by 1-0. Although Luton had a higher XG in this game, I thought Fulham absolutely dominated, and that is reflected by the attacking momentum bar. Luton are a concern for me. Moving on, we have Aston Villa again maintaining that momentum after that poor result against Liverpool. 3-1 against Crystal Palace. Very, very good. Palace a bit off in that game. Tottenham with a massive, massive recovery against Sheffield United. I believe it was in the 100th minute and the 106th minute. If we can have a look here, we can see here the 98th minute and the 100th minute. Just crazy to be able to turn it around against Sheffield United, who are absolutely fuming after that one. Tottenham obviously dominating the game on attacking momentum, but really, Sheffield United are going to be kicking themselves for that one. West Ham against Man City. West Ham actually scoring the first goal in this game, but Man City really coming back into it. I thought that Haaland was very good. West Ham failing to really capitalise on their goal. Of course, Man City are always going to huff and puff, and look at the R's on these attacking momentum lines. They really are nearly in the goal. at this point with how dangerous these attacks are. West Ham, I thought, put up a decent fight, but it was always going to go one way in the second half. Newcastle, Brentford, what a massive win for Newcastle this is, especially after that horrendous loss to Brighton. 1-0 against Brentford, who could and probably should have done a little bit better with what they had. Was it a penalty for you? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. And really, I thought Newcastle were well worth the win. Yeah, not sure about that one, but I thought that Newcastle did a pretty good job of making sure that they were able to progress the ball forwards. They were able to play through the lines. The average positions really do show that Newcastle are a well-drilled side. I thought Anthony Gordon did okay. Harvey Barnes was missing to a certain extent, and Callum Wilson gets his goal eventually, but were they saving Alexander Isak for the Champions League game that they have to play? That remains to be seen. I thought Brentford were quite good and probably were a little bit unlucky to be on the end of a loss in this game. Bournemouth and Chelsea. Chelsea creating quite a few chances, but overall nothing too mad. Bournemouth, I thought, did a decent job of maintaining their attacking possession, but Chelsea really didn't have a foothold in the game. I thought that the players that they had on the pitch had more than enough to be able to deal with the defensive aspects of Bournemouth, but Sterling and Mudryk, although Sterling did play quite well, didn't really fashion too many chances. Yes, they hit the bar and they had a couple of decent opportunities, but really, it's crazy how this game ended 0-0, really. I thought that Bournemouth had decent attacks. They had a 1 expected goal, Chelsea 1.85, 35% possession, 65%. Eventually, it will go Chelsea's way, and Chelsea will return back to winning ways. But up until then, it's looking a little bit dicey. I know they have, I think, something like 12 injuries at the moment, and that is going to hamper them. But the team that they fielded, you probably would argue, should be able to beat the likes of Bournemouth, who, I might add, should not be taken lightly. They're a very, very good side at the minute, and I think Andoni Iraola is going to slowly start to creep his Bournemouth side up the Premier League. Now, that's one to wait on, honestly. Bournemouth are a decent side. Right, let's finish up by having a look at the Premier League table. Luton in bottom, not a win in sight, 4 losses, a goal difference of -8, just not good enough. Everton are in the bottom as well, not getting a win. Neither do Sheffield United. None of the promoted sides, Burnley are obviously still yet to play, have gotten a win in the Premier League this season. Can Burnley turn that around this evening? Time will tell. Manchester United are in 13th, and to be honest with you, with the way they've played, I think they should be lower. But they've played 5 matches now, and they've lost 3 of them. Disgraceful form. Are they out of the top 4 already? Is it finished? Are they out? Is it done? Are they fighting for top 6 now? Let me know your thoughts. Chelsea, how far can they go? Can Mauricio Pochettino turn it around? And then we have a look at the top of the table. Brighton in 5th. Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, Man City, all getting wins. Fantastic for them. They have done brilliant. And we have 4 sides in the Premier League who have not lost a game yet. Can we have an invincible run this season? Manchester City are still yet to receive a loss, and they've only conceded 3 goals. They've scored 14. That's very, very impressive. But Brighton are the top scorers of the Premier League with 15 goals. Just some really, really, really good stuff. This is your Premier League table. This was the recap. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please make sure you hit that like button. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. But until then, take care.